Welcome back, baseball fans. 1980-83. My goodness. Fall League first round draft results. First round is in. This is, by the way, the draft order based on record a year ago. Team 1, Seattle, the worst record in the league. They picked first. Of course, we know the Expos won the World Series. They're going to be down here at 32. And we keep track of if there are any draft tokens that are moved around in the draft as well. Compensation for trades, to balance trades out. We have our list of players, but let's get to the draft picks themselves. So here we go. We're going to go scroll down, starting with Seattle, with the first pick in the draft. And it's not, well, it is kind of sexy. It is going to be 1980 Dave Kingman, coming off the home run championship in '79. He delivers an 850 OPS, a 522 slugging, and crushes right-handed pitchers, as you can tell. So in the Kingdom, that'll put fans in the seats. I don't think they're contending for the division, but it'll make the Seattle games exciting with Dave Kingman banging homers off the roof. So that was their pick for the Seattle team. With the second pick in the draft, it is the Minnesota Twins, and they decided on a rookie from '82, Tom Bernansky. Hit .272, 848 OPS with 20 home runs. Nice little year. Probably should have been taken last year, but Urbic was the selection. Bernansky's just 21 years old, so he's just growing into it. And they would also, that's all they did. They just took Tom Bernansky. But the third team up is your Colorado Rockies. They used to have Dave Kingman a long time ago, by the way. And they would take, oh, this is rather fascinating. They went into the 1983 box and did some pitcher moves. They took Alejandro Pena, redrafted to them from the Dodgers in the year of '83 with a 2.75 ERA, a 114 whip, and 177 innings. Very good card. Kind of surprising to be the third overall pick in the draft, but this draft's looking kind of lean anyway in this part of the timeline. And they doubled up by improving Larry McWilliams as a 29-year-old for the Pirates, had a 3.25 ERA. Most importantly, can pitch on 3 days rest. So a Colorado team that has really struggled in this league recently decided to let's finally address the pitching and make that better. And immediately, McWilliams and Pena are the new number 1 and number 2 in Colorado. And they're statistically pretty good. We'll see if it works. You notice the color, the light green, mint green color here means you have this player, but you're improving him. The clear players are rookies and I guess, what color is this? Blue, a cyan or whatever? Anyway, that means he's a keeper that they have the rights to, exclusive rights to, and they select. So that's how we look at this color coding. Fourth team up is your Padres, and they do a couple moves with the pitching staff. They had all these lefties in their system, Bob Shirley and Randy Jones, and yet they realized in '82, Tim Lawler, 26 years old, has his best year with a 3.13 ERA, pitching on 3 days rest, which means that the days of Randy Jones and Bob Shirley are coming to a close. They doubled up, and by doubling up, what I mean is they announced a player in the same year to be either drafted in the 5th through 8th rounds, but they announced it at the same time just to speed the draft up. So because they have the rights to Louis DeLeon, they announce it now. 23-year-old goes to the bullpen with a 2.03 ERA. He'll be the setup for Raleigh Fingers until Fingers leaves. Fingers will leave at the end of this year and go to Milwaukee. 2 hot pitchers for a San Diego team. Trying to do the same thing Colorado is. It hasn't worked with the offense. Let's try and improve pitching. The Boston Sox. No-brainer territory here, folks. This is your mic drop moment. They double up with, they have the rights to Jim Rice, so of course they put him in his next grade card, which is 1983. He's 30 years old. He hits 39 home runs. He's got a 911 OPS, and his defense is good. And then they improve, believe it or not, Wade Boggs only hit 325 last year, and they weren't happy with that. So they improved Wade Boggs to a 361 batting average. This is 1,840 OPS with these two cats. Rice and Boggs, Boston is not content in the American League East playing for a wild card. They want the whole hot dog. We don't want just the bun, all right? So that's what Boston did with Rice and Boggs. Ooh, and there's a shiver in the American League. Florida. Okay, they took the roadmap. Pascual Perez, if he makes it to the ballpark without getting lost, he will be an outstanding pitcher for Atlanta. 26 years old, 3.43 ERA in 215 innings, can pitch on 3 days rest. He will join Phil Niekro and Charlie Huff in the starting pitching room in Atlanta, and that'll be a fun bunch of conversations. Excuse me, he's actually with Florida. He won't be doing that. He was Atlanta Brave, so he won't be joining Phil Niekro and Charlie Huff in Atlanta. He's going to be in Florida, so he'll become the ace of Florida, and I don't know who will be in the starting pitching room with him. So let's move on to the Tigers. Oh yeah, they're building. You can see it on the horizon that in 1984 the Tigers are going to take over the world. But in 1983, some of the chips actually have their best years, and that would be original A-Rod, not the original A-Rod, Aurelio Lopez joining Aurelio Rodriguez in Detroit, and Sweet Lou Whitaker. Sweet Lou is 320 with an 837 OPS and is a 1 second baseman. And Lopez has a 281 ERA and a 117 whip. Detroit's going to go for the division this year, but by next year they should have this thing set for, yeah. This division's getting tough. Expos won the World Series. I know Cleveland's getting better. Detroit, and wait till you see who Ohio takes. It's going to get silly. All right, the Cubs. The Cubbies. What do the Cubs do? Oh, yeah, so this is like a two-part move here. The Cubs have the rights to Bruce Sutter, but they take Lee Smith in the draft. And it seems like there's going to be a deal. Lee Smith is going to be the new Cub closer with a 165 ERA in 83. And they also take, they've always had trouble at third base. They take Pat Tabler, who played for the Cubs and the Indians in this timeline. He's an E6 third baseman. Folks, ignore the 4. He's an E6 third baseman. That gets a lot of rolls. The E rating percentage is very high on corner infielders, so that E6 will turn a lot of double plays. He'll give up a lot of singles and doubles too, and that created a trade that we'll get to a little bit later with the Cardinals. All right, next team up is the Toronto Blue Jays. Oh, they did some nice stuff here. So in the offseason, they acquired Ken Landreau from the Twins. Landreau is going to skip going to the Dodgers altogether, and he'll go to Toronto until Jesse Barfield and George Bell are ready, and they're not. So Landreau will go into the outfield along with improving Lloyd Moseby. Finally. And when you say finally, they probably brought the kid up too young. He's only 23 years old. It's his 4th year in the league, for Pete's sakes. But he figures it all out in 1983. 315. What a great year for Lloyd Moseby. Good to see it finally popping for him. So Landreau and Moseby, two outstanding outfielders, suddenly blossoming in Toronto. This is a fun team. They also added Rod Carew a year ago. They added some guys who weren't Blue Jays to get this team better sooner. That's good news for the American League East competitively. The Ohio players. Oh boy. It's almost like you hate to see this happen when teams are so cocky that they don't even want to take anybody in the first round. They just want to improve the guys they have. So if you're wondering, the Ohio players started the draft with 12 guys. They still got 12 guys. They improved Jerry Mumphrey. Took a 300 hitter and turned him into a 336 hitter with an 880 OPS. They then took George Hendrick. Took a 300 hitter. Turned him into a 320 hitter with an 866 OPS. Kind of head-scratching moves, but when you look at the big picture for Ohio, they're going to make sure that every single position player is in their best year and probably have the weakest bench in all of baseball if their injuries occur. So what this means is they're going to finish this draft with only 18 guys, and they're going to have to add 2 guys off the street to get a 20-man roster. The Giants. Oh, this is a kind of a surprise, but you got to dig a little deep on this one. Only 1 pick, and it was Rick Burleson's 81 season. A 1E19 shortstop who hits 293, and he's got power. They gave the Rooster power versus lefties. So he has power, and he's a 1E19. Not a lot of guys can make that claim, folks. And the Giants, you know, they went out, made a deal with Boston a couple years ago, and they want to push him further. He went from the Red Sox to the California Angels. Forget it. He's going to be a Giant until he runs out of gas. Rick Burleson, that's the only pick they made. They weren't sure who else to take from the 81 box, so they just left it alone. The Pirates, oh boy. Well, you can't blame them. Can you really blame them for these two picks? For 1980, they took Dave Parker and Willie Stargell. And they're trying. They're still trying to get that World Series championship in this timeline. The We Are Family 79 Pirates just did not happen. Didn't make the playoffs, as a matter of fact. And so the running back, 29-year-old. And by the way, Parker's going to have a nice little lull here until he gets to the Cincinnati Reds. And yeah, 40-year-old Pop Stargell. Hall of Famers can be first-round picks regardless of how good they are. Pop's is still 836 OPS, and he's got, 11 homers in half a season? Yeah. Parker and Stargell. Surprising because it's not surprising. Next up, the White Sox. They had to make a deal, believe it or not. So this is how this worked out. When we were farting through the Florida Marlins draft picks, we noticed that they had Pascual Perez, but they also had Richard Dotson. Redrafted them in the 83 box. And they had no room for two of them. So the White Sox said, we want our guy back. So they actually had to trade a draft token to get Richard Dotson back before someone else stole him. So the White Sox do get Richard Dotson's 22-win season to join the 82 Lamar Hoyt, who some believe was better than the Hoyt that won 24 games in 83. So Richard Dotson only cost them a draft token. They're willing to give it up to make sure they get their guy. Dotson was almost a Florida Marlin, but the White Sox pulled some strings, and they made sure they have a great starting rotation. They have Britt Burns, Lamar Hoyt, Richard Dotson, and a very good Dennis Lamp. So the White Sox are ready to win this division. So this division's going to be pretty hot because you got to remember, you got the 83 White Sox, you got the 82 Brewers, and the 80 Kansas City Royals, all in the same division. Boy, folks, this league's getting nutso. In Kansas City, oh boy, they're making moves to get to the World Series as well. We'll get to them soon. Next up, the Dodgers. And all four of their infielders are up. Garvey, Say, Lopes, and Russell. And so they just went to the best of the lot, which is Garvey, and took his 80 season where he hits 304, 26, and 106 RBI for Steve Garvey. And of all the other guys, in the year of 1980, to speed the draft up, they just took Bill Russell because he's still reasonably good defensively. He's a 3.26. He's a B stealer. And frankly, offensively, it doesn't really matter too much one year to the next. So they're going to probably go with Ron Say's 81 card, and then Davey Lopes. A little bit later in his career, he has some nice seasons with the Cubs and the Oakland A's, and they might take one of those cards in 83. Next up, the Arizona Diamondbacks. Okay, we got another rookie here from the year of 83. They got Mel Hall, who was a 22-year-old Chicago Cub player who hit 283, 352, 488, 840. Can play center field for you. Will probably play left field with Tony Scott in center. Nice player, expansion team. This is not really flashy. And but Arizona likes guys with good batting average. And they doubled up by announcing that they want Darryl Porter's 83 card, where his OPS is at his highest point at this point until he retires, 794, a year after he was the World Series MVP. Kansas City Royals. Well, oh boy, American League. Remember way up top when we had Jim Rice and Wade Boggs at Boston? Remember that? Ugh. Kansas City Royals trying to win that 1980 World Series. This is George Brett's last chance with a 390 card, so you have to go in there and get some meat on the bone here. Butch Davis's 1983 Kansas City card hits 344, 868 OPS, and not to be outdone, they still have the rights to Willie Aikens. At 28 years old in 1983, Willie has arguably his best year. 302, 912. And basically, this team is going to just destroy right-handed pitching, Kansas City, as Akins and Davis and Brett, at least those three, are going to be probably the three best hitters on any team, thanks to Brett, pretty much. So you're pretty much going to have to throw lefties against them if you want any success. We've got 1,780 points of OPS there. All right, this is how an outlier card, a one-year wonder card of Butch Davis, can tilt the scales a little bit. Next up, the Cardinals. They're still not at the Ozzie Smith, Lonnie Smith era quite yet, because the Padres refused to trade Ozzie Smith, and they're going to let his career end with San Diego in 1980. And the Cardinals don't really want to send Keith Hernandez to the New York Mets. So they went with Keith Hernandez and Gary Templeton with their last great years in St. Louis, 1980. You can't blame them. Why get rid of these guys who are performing? Look at this. 321, 902 for Keith Hernandez. And for Templeton, it's 319, 759. Can't really blame Hernandez and Templeton to the Cardinals. Look at the ages. 26, 20. Is that really correct? Templeton's just 24 years old? I can't believe these guys are that young. And why would you get rid of these guys? Oh, whatever. Templeton clearly missed the artificial turf of St. Louis when he went to San Diego. All right, the Rangers. Hey, these are kind of neat picks. They finally got a first baseman. My goodness. They had designated hitters there a year ago. They had Rusty Staub and Larry Bittner kicking balls over at first base. So now they got Pat Putnam, who's a rangy 2 first baseman. He puts his foot in the bucket and pulls a dead pull hitter. 269, 773 OPS. Can't hit lefties for a lick, but he's got 19 homers versus righties. And they made Kiko Garcia Lorca an everyday second baseman. He's a 2. It's 288, 759 OPS. Hits righties better than lefties. Something I'm a big fan of for right-handed batters. Willing to tolerate a weakness against lefties, both of them, as a matter of fact. Putnam and Garcia. Garcia was an improvement. Next up, Atlanta. Normally, it's the do we improve Dale Murray conversation year after year after year as he gets better and better and better and better. But they decided that, no, leave Dale Murray alone. He's already in his 1982 season. Dale Murphy, I mean. Leave Dale Murphy alone in his 82 card. Don't improve it to his 83 card. They looked into their rookie stack, and this move is a little questionable, but you had to dig a little deeper here. They take Mike Madden. He's a left-handed starting 6. Was an Astro, but they got him in the redraft, and they desperately needed a left-handed starting pitching, and we saw, guys like Tim Lawler get picked earlier, and we saw Larry McWilliams getting improved. So Atlanta did not want to lose out on the lefties. And the other thing is that they had no room for Steve Bedrosian because they still have Rick Camp, Gene Garber, and Kevin Saucier. I mean, it'd be silly to add Bedrosian to that bullpen. You can't use all those guys when you need them. So they need a lefty starter to join Charlie Huff, Phil Negro, and Tommy Boggs. And Madden's the guy. And then they also improved Ramirez. From his 280 card, everything gets better. His batting average, his defense is a 2. He's a B stealer and a B hit runner. So everything about Rafael Ramirez improves in 83. So they bumped him up to that. All right, the Oakland A's. Pretty lean farm system. So they had to go to the first year of 1980 and find something to do. And they decided that they have 7 of their 12 players are pitchers. All they needed to do was to add their left-hander Tom Underwood. So they did. So the Oakland A's are the first team to lock up something. Their pitching staff is complete. I believe it's McCaddy, Langford, Underwood, Keogh. And then they have 2 lefties in the bullpen. Boy, am I going to remember this. Jimmy Easterly, Bob Lacey, Dave Beard, and Jeff Jones. That's Oakland's pitching staff. Did they get somebody else? Oh, yeah. They have the rights to Gene Tennis. So they're pushing Tennis. This is going to be the one change of history, is that all the Charlie Finley Oakland A's moved along, but we just could not part with Gene Tennis in Oakland. And he has some really fun cards. He's 33 years old, And so he brings back memories of the dynasty Oakland A's. He's going to continue in Oakland. So that means he's not going to San Diego. He's not going to go to St. Louis. I think he went to Pittsburgh. He's not going to go there either. He's just going to stay in Oakland. Not a big market for 222 hitters, even if they have a 399 on base. Perfect Billy Bean, Moneyball, Oakland A player. Gene Tennis will probably play his whole career in Oakland. Why not? I'm kind of digging that idea. I'd love to see him finish it up in Oakland. All right. Vegas has the rights to Dave Winfield. So they intercepted the San Diego to New York connection. And Dave has said, you know, I like it here in Vegas. I don't need to go to the Bronx. I'll wait till Reggie's gone. Then I'll go to the Bronx, is the theory. So Winfield's going to stick around another couple years in Las Vegas. And they also added, they have the rights to Bill Castro, who had a nice little year in '82 as a long man. Pretty good one, actually. So Winfield and Castro, solid moves for Las Vegas. They also have the Commissioner Award, which will be the first pick of the second round. And we'll announce that when we get the second round draft picks. That's for roster utilization. The team who utilizes their roster the best in a season gets the 33rd pick in the following draft between the first and second round. It's like trading your 8th round pick and moving it up to the second round. So first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh. So I have to look at it. That's just because you decided that you were going to use all your players more than any other team. All right, the New York Mets. Oh, yes, the Mets are going to go young. Yes, they are. So, they have the rights to Craig Swan and Lee Mazzilli and also Tom Hausman and Ray Knight. But they decided, you know, we cannot ignore these young guys in 1983. So the Mets don't have a center fielder presently. They had Juan Benitez for a year. They put him on waivers. They still have Lee Mazzilli. They have Joe Youngblood in right field, but they couldn't resist Darryl Strawberry. 257. Does have the 26 homers. He's an ace stealer, 848 OPS, name recognition, first-round talent, definitely. They'll probably stick him in right field, and Youngblood could move to center field, where he's a 3, with a better arm than Lee Mazzilli, have Mazzilli play left, or they can just draft a center fielder. But it probably won't be, it might be Mookie Wilson with his 82 card. And Jesse Orosco. Now, they've got a fantastic bullpen. They could put Pete Falcone in the rotation if they wanted to. Orosco with a 1.47 ERA and a 1.03 whip. Young cats on the Mets who made the playoffs a year ago. Clearly, we know their star is on the rise. Once their starting pitchers, the Glenn Abbott's, the Frank Tanenas, the Craig Swans, start to fall apart, next year they'll probably add Ron Darling and maybe Ed Lynch, something like that to their rotation. Oh, Dwight Gooden, never mind. They'll add Dwight Gooden and Ron Darling next year. All right. The Baltimore Orioles only did one move, and then they considered a second move, and they said, let's pump the brakes here. They just improved Cal Ripken to his 83 card to become the full-time shortstop finally, because they had him at third base in year 1 with Belanger at shortstop. Now they moved him to their full-time shortstop position, and they considered a bunch of different other players from 83 at their World Series year, including Tippy Martinez, Mike Flanagan, Scott McGregor, Dan Ford, and they decided that they would just wait and see how the draft unfolds before committing to someone, which is fine. All it means is it slows my draft process down a little bit, that's all. Cleveland, human rain delay. Mike Hargrove, they got a deep system. They have a lot of options for 82 and 83, but it elected to go with the chalk. The chalk pick is Mike Hargrove. If you manage that team, you're considered a BPA as well. First round pick, 819 OPS. Hard to deny the reasoning for Mike Hargrove, and that's their only pick. All right, the Houston Astros. Oh, yeah, they made the offseason deal for Nolan Ryan, so they had to make him the first-round pick. They put him into his best year in Houston, which is 81. A 1.69 ERA. He can pitch on 3 days rest with just 149 innings because it's a strike year. A 1.12 whip. A little surprising. I thought that whip was like 0.9 something, but it's actually 1.12. A 169 ERA, and they weren't done. They weren't done. They decided to. They improved Dave Smith. Oh my goodness. So Dave Smith, he's got a 1.03 whip. So National League, be on alert. Houston's got J.R. Richard with a 190 ERA, Nolan Ryan with a 169 ERA, and Dave Smith with his best card, and Joe Sambito with his best card. That's half the rotation. That's half the pitching staff right there, the two starters. Oh, and they're going to have 82 Joe Niekro with his best card. So the Astros are going to sneak up and become the best pitching staff in the National League. Watch out, folks. The New York Yankees. This is a groan and laugh pick simultaneously. The New York Yankees got eliminated a year ago by the Expos, who went on to win the World Series. So in their 1983 redraft, lo and behold, the Yankees had the rights to Bryn Smith, a Montreal Expo pitcher. And because they already have two lefties, Guidry and Tommy John, Bryn Smith becomes a Yankee. This is what the Yankees do. They do vengeful things against the rest of baseball. trying to hurt the Montreal franchise as much as they possibly can. They steal Bryn Smith away from them with his 2.49 ERA and a 1.19 whip. And you know what? The Expos could care less. You know what? They like Bryn Smith, but they already don't have room for Charlie Lee. They have Gullickson, they have Scott Sanderson, and Steve Rogers. So they really had no place for Bryn Smith. So the Yankees took him away from the organization anyway. So Yankees going to have a good pitching staff again. Caudill will move out of the rotation. Bryn Smith replaces him, and Caudill will go into the bullpen, replacing Dick Tidrow. The Yankees are once again going to have one of the best pitching staffs in the American League. All right. Milwaukee Brewers, trying to just keep it on with the guys they know. So they doubled up in the year of 1981, which is the strike year, a bad year. But lo and behold, this is a silver lining. Gorman Thomas would have his highest batting averages of his career, 259. Still an 841 OPS. And he hits homers, more of them versus righties than lefties, which is a first. That's an excellent Gorman Thomas card. He's still a 1 in center field. And then Charlie Moore. They said, why let Charlie Moore be a part-time player? Why not let Charlie Moore inflict some damage on the American League? He hits 301. A 301 hitting catcher to this incredible Milwaukee offense of Cooper and Yount and Molitor and Ogilvy. So the Brewers, I don't know, folks. That's that division. Kansas City, Milwaukee, White Sox. I don't know. Scary times, scary times. Next up, the Big Red Machine. No-brainer here, 1981. We know what happens. Best record in baseball. No invite to the playoffs. And they're going to make the National League pay for that because they're going to take Johnny Bench in a surprising 309 year. They're going to have to get a catcher backup finally. He's 33 years old. They have to go get a backup catcher. But Bench is 309, 858. And also George Foster, his last big year in Cincinnati, his last big year in baseball, frankly. 295, 892. So these guys are 32 and 33 years old. Would you have thought George Foster was just 1 year younger than Johnny Bench? Early bloomer, late bloomer. Okay. But when you look at these OPSs, they're pretty close to the big lofty OPSs that we saw with Boston and Kansas City. Those are both over 900, but they're pretty close at least. Reds are going to be in great shape. They'll be fine. California can only boast one stud to improve in this time, and it was the 81 Bobby Grich. And his amazing 1979, and now he's a 32-year-old second baseman, has an amazing year of the strike of 81. 22 homers, strike shortened season, 304 batting average, 921 OPS. I mean, that's a double take. That card at second base might be one of the best second baseman cards until Sandberg comes along. At age 32. My goodness, California. And they've gone to 3 straight league championship series. They're going to have the 82 Brian Downing. They still have the rights to Don Baylor. So California refuses to give up on their quest to win a World Series. Portland, a surprise team that made it all the way to the League Championship Series. Now they're going to have to suffer with a low draft position. But they did some nice stuff here. Really nice stuff. They have the rights to John Milner, but they said, you know what? We found Willie Upshaw in the farm system, redrafted them from Toronto. And Willie Upshaw has a magic 1983. 306, 887 OPS. He is the new first baseman in town. So they're going to open up the phones and see if somebody wants to make a deal for John Milner. Probably nobody will, and he'll be released. But in any event, Milner is available if you're looking for a first baseman. And, oh, by the way, with their second pick of 83, Bob Horner, 25 years old in 1983. He got hurt a little bit, but didn't stop him from hitting 303 with a 911 OPS. So, two very potent bats on a very potent Portland offense. They also will add Chet Lemon and Terry Poole to the outfield. Boy, this offense is going to be outstanding. Their offense will lead their pitching. We're getting to the World Series runner-up, the Philadelphia Phillies. This is like no-brainer territory here. 40-year-old Pete Rose is better than any rookie they have, as he hits 325 at age 40 and is a 2 at first base instead of a 4. So they take him, and they also take 35-year-old Larry Boa, who's a 2 at shortstop still. As long as he's a 2, Philadelphia's going to keep running him back. He's not a 1 anymore, but he's still a 2 at age 35. And he's not with the Cubs quite yet, which is where he ends up. 283 batting average, and he's an ace stealer. You know, they lost the World Series. They were humbled by the Expos, but you can argue that the bats are getting slightly better. Rose's defense gets better. His bat stays about the same. Boa's bat gets a little better. His glove gets a little worse. They're a year older, but they're still trying to run it back with 2 decent cards there. And last, but not least, your world champion Expos. They just decided to do the chalk thing. Their keepers were Gary Carter, Larry Parrish, Enrique Romo, Elias Sosa. Of course, that first name on the list, Mr. Expo, Gary Carter. You have to take him, regardless of what's in the farm system. He's your first-round pick, and his best year is 82. 293, 29 home runs out of your -3 arm catcher, and 890 OPS. My goodness, folks. And just to, you know, partner up with Gary Carter, they decided in that same year to improve Steve Rogers. So Gary Carter and Steve Rogers are preparing to defend their title. Montreal fans out there, they're going to run this thing back, and Steve Rogers gets improved to his best year in this timeline, 1982. 240 ERA, a 111 whip for Steve Rogers. He gets better. Carter gets better. They won the World Series a year ago. My goodness, folks. Boy, this American League. Oh my goodness. Milwaukee, Kansas City, the Expos. Some good stuff. And that is your first round picks of the 1980-83 Carryover League. Thanks for checking this out. We'll see you next time.